The challenges of navigating life and our mental health are real for all of us, for many of us personally, and for the people that we love and live with. What we want to do is we want to show up really well and point people to help and hope in Jesus. Sometimes that can be really hard. So we've invited some friends to help us out. This is Jennifer Antonucci from Renewing Life Center. She's the director down there, been investing in our city for many years, doing great work in the line of mental health. Well-trained and here to help us address some challenging stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes we encounter people in our lives who are struggling so much, and it's being expressed in the areas of self-harm, or even sometimes in the expression of wanting to end their own life. These can be really hard things, moments for us to know how to navigate and show up well. We don't want to mess it up. We don't want to not show up. Help us show up well in those places.
Well, I think the first part is actually showing up. A lot of people are too scared to help someone who's hurting. And so my biggest encouragement is show up. And when you show up well. And meaning, don't freak out. Don't come in with all kinds of ideas, but come in as a listener and as a friend.
We often want to step in and do something or say something.
Yeah.
In each of these cases of seeing someone harming themselves or thinking about ending their life, what do we do once we've shown up calmly?
Self-harm typically, not always, but typically is it's a way for a person to express inner turmoil and angst. And so for a lot of people who self-harm, whether it's cutting themselves, anything that they're doing to mutilate their bodies, for a lot of people they feel like, I am not okay, I'm hurting so much, if I can just cut myself, I will feel better. And the reason they feel better is because when you cut yourself, it releases different chemicals. And so in a sense, it's a coping mechanism for pain. It's just an unhealthy coping mechanism. I have lots of clients, unfortunately, who use self-harm as an expression of, again, that inner turmoil, whether it's depression, anxiety, anger. And when I work with them, the goal is, number one, what are you feeling? What's under it? What's causing you to want to hurt yourself? And then number two, what might be different / better options for you? So instead of harming your body, what could you do instead? But it's asking in a way where they don't feel judged, where they feel cared for. So it's saying, hey, I'm worried. Are you okay? Like, tell me what's going on.
You have said before that self-harm and suicidal ideation, or considering ending one's life, they're not the same thing, though there might be a little bit of overlap. Can you help us distinguish the two?
So I want to be careful, because some people who self-harm also have thoughts of ending their lives, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they want to end their life. A person who wants to end their life, you have to, obviously, as Christians and as people, we love and care for them. So the number one thing is keeping them safe and alive. Whether they want to be alive or not, we love them and we want them alive. And so there's some questions that you need to ask them calmly. You're not freaking out. You're not showing up a mess or full of anxiety. So you show up calmly and you say, have you ever thought about ending your life? And do you have a plan for how you might do it? And then after that question, do you have the means? So if the person says, I have thought about ending my life using a gun, then the next question would be, do you have access to guns? So again, you're curious, you're gentle, but also cautious, because this person matters. This is a child of God, and we want them alive. Even if they don't want to be alive, we want them alive. And so the next question would then be, do you have an intent on killing yourself? And if the answer, especially to that last question, is yes, then you need to get them help immediately, which would mean either taking them to the emergency room or calling 911. That is really important, because sometimes people aren't okay and we can't help them be okay. They need extra help.
In my experience, often people in those moments, if they're brave enough to share that with me, they aren't always excited for others to be included. How do we know how to support them in getting the help that they need?
Yeah, it's important to know the person at least on some level, to know what is their support system like. Do they have friends and family who love them, who support them? Not everybody does, unfortunately. And so asking again the question, or if you know them, knowing, okay, we have a little team that we need to bring on, whether it's a best friend or a grandma or a mom or whoever it is. If they're underage, mom and dad need to be involved. If they're under 18, mom and dad have to be part of the picture legally. That would be the first call, would be to mom and dad if they're 18, under 18. But again, it's knowing who they are and what kind of support they have.
I've talked with people and have teenagers in our home a bunch and have heard this phrase like, oh, I'm going to kill myself, flippantly used as slang when it's actually, that's a very serious statement. What would you say to people who are like, oh, people are just using an expression? How would you encourage them to engage when they hear that?
It's unfortunately a popular phrase, especially for our young people, whether they're texting it or saying it. What I would encourage is a private conversation pretty quickly, just to find out how serious they are, if there's any truth or validation to that statement. Was it just something flippant, like, oh, I got an F in this class and I feel this way? Or are you actually feeling this way? And so it takes intentionality on our part, and it takes wisdom to pull them aside.
From there we can coach, we can lean into the 4 questions that we've talked about, or maybe offer some other ways to express the same emotion that are less alarming and cause for concern. What I hear you saying in general is, in these moments, the worst thing we can do is back away. The worst thing we can do is distance or minimize. We need to show up calmly, helpfully, especially around the issue of ending one's life, but also around self-harm. We can ask some helpful questions.